This video is sponsored by Dashlane. Check out the link in the description to find out how you can start using Dashlane for free and get 10% off premium. Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and the 16-inch MacBook Pro has a lot to make up for many of Apple's power users, with previous generations being plagued by a number of sweltering controversies. Controversies like the laptop thermals not being good enough to cool the new hot multi-core Intel processors, weak graphics that were not powerful enough for pro users, not having a big enough battery to power through an entire day of use, a lack of ports, and most of all, a giant controversy of a new butterfly keyboard that was unreliable for so many of its users. First, let's talk about that design, because the overall design of the 16-inch MacBook Pro looks pretty familiar at first glance compared to the old 15-inch 2016 to 2019 generations, albeit this time with a slightly reduced bezels on the side and top, which make for a slightly bigger 16-inch Retina display. That Retina display has a resolution of 3072 by 1920 with a pixel density of 226 pixels per inch. It also has 500 nits of brightness and incorporates Apple's True Tone display technology, which can change the color temperature of the display depending on your ambient lighting. But that was also available on the previous generation of MacBook Pros, and besides the bigger display, the display quality is pretty much identical to that of the 15-inch MacBook Pro. And that's not a bad thing. It has the same great color-accurate factory-calibrated MacBook Pro display you're used to, but this time with just an extra bit of screen real estate. The bigger display isn't a game changer, but the reduced bezels are noticeable, and that 0.6 inches of extra space is appreciated when you're juggling multiple windows or you're trying to get as much space as possible in your Final Cut Pro 10 timeline. Even though that display looks the same, there is one thing I left out, and that is that this display also has a variable refresh rate. Now, this refresh rate doesn't go past 60 Hz, so you can't toggle it for 90 or 120 Hz, but you can lower it to 59.94, 50, 48, or 47.95 Hz. Despite the new 16-inch MacBook Pro name, this MacBook Pro would probably be more aptly named the Magic Keyboard MacBook Pro in terms of new, or I guess old features that many customers will rush out and put down $2,399 just for this one simple change. Of course, I am referring to the fact that this 16-inch MacBook Pro replaces the low travel and potentially unreliable butterfly keyboard with what Apple calls a Magic Keyboard. This new keyboard uses older scissor switch mechanisms instead of the butterfly ones designed for the thinner MacBook and offers increased 1mm of travel. If you're expecting this keyboard to be the same as the 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro, well, you'd be wrong, because this keyboard combines the best of the stability of the butterfly keys with the reliability and increased travel of the Magic Keyboard. In use, this makes it feel like a hybrid between the 2015 keys and the butterfly keyboard. And I say that as a good thing because overall, I really like typing on this keyboard. It's tactile, stable, and precise, and probably won't break on you if you eat a Ritz cracker over it. And it also retains some of those other improvements from the butterfly keyboard, like better backlighting. But it goes back to older design trends of an inverted T-arrow key and a physical escape key, which also makes the Touch ID button separate, which you can use for logging into your computer, apps, or security preferences very quickly. You might have noticed it also features the Touch Bar, which continues to be a mixed bag. I personally like the Touch Bar and I have some useful applications for it, but I do wish that Apple innovated a little more here by adding their excellent haptic feedback technology into the Touch Bar, which in theory should be able to simulate clicks just like Apple's excellent Force Touch glass trackpads, which remains unrivaled in the PC laptop world. Also, while Touch ID is great and works well, I was surprised that Apple has not yet moved to the superior Face ID system, which is found on the latest iPhones and iPad Pros. However, Apple has made some improvements in other areas where I really wasn't expecting them, and that namely comes in the brand new speaker system and microphone. And this new 6-speaker system on the 16-inch MacBook Pro are, quite frankly, the best laptop speakers that I have ever heard, with a really well-balanced sound that mixes in a deeper bass for an overall crisp sound that gets plenty loud. And even when you pump up those volumes, Apple's dual force canceling woofers make sure the laptop doesn't shake your laptop or your table. I will note one small issue that I had with the 16-inch MacBook Pro speakers though, and that would be when you're skipping audio on either music or say something like a YouTube video, sometimes I would hear an audible popping sound.
But you're also getting a bundle.
The microphone is what Apple claims is a studio quality microphone that you can use for podcasting or music recording on the go. And while I've seen many in the tech world scoff at these studio quality microphone claims, I think Apple has done a really good job here. Will you get better audio with a dedicated microphone? Yes, but these are good enough to use on the go. And in fact, I recorded an entire episode of my podcast exclusively with these microphones, and I was impressed by the sound quality. Hello world, and welcome to another episode of GadgetCast. I'm your host, Gregory McFadden, joined by my co-host, Travis MCP. Unfortunately, Apple's new microphones aren't accompanied by a better camera, which still only supports a 720p resolution and performs abysmally in low light. Another oversight for me is the lack of the latest Wi-Fi 6 chips, which granted are more likely not here due to Intel's 10th generation CPUs not being ready, but it's still a sore point, especially for people purchasing an expensive laptop with the intention of keeping it for 5 years or so. Speaking of oversights, an oversight that you don't want to make is not having a strong password manager to secure and keep track of your multiple accounts online, which is why you need to check out our sponsor for this video, Dashlane. Dashlane is a password manager that stores your passwords in a secure and encrypted vault, so your passwords and data are only available to you. Dashlane will automatically generate secure passwords for your account and works with Apple's built-in Touch ID and Face ID to automatically fill in your passwords for websites and apps, so you never have to fill them in manually across all your devices. So your computer and iPhone passwords are all in the same place. And you can store other sensitive information like addresses, secure notes, IDs, and even payment information to make online checkouts a breeze. Listen, we all have so many accounts, and if you're using the same password over and over, you're putting yourself at increased risk anytime there is a data breach, so you need a strong password manager to keep all of your accounts safe. Furthermore, Dashlane even provides dark web monitoring, which scans the web for any leaked or stolen personal data and alerts you when necessary. And on top of that, Dashlane also provides a VPN so you can browse the internet securely and privately. Dashlane also works on all platforms, whether you're using iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, Safari, Chrome, and even Linux, so your passwords are accessible to you no matter what device you use. So try Dashlane for free on your first device by heading to dashlane.com/gadgets, then to get 10% off premium, use the code GADGETS. So be sure to check out our sponsor for this video, Dashlane, and thank you again to Dashlane for sponsoring this video. Now, while all the other features we mentioned in this video matter, the main reason you're buying a MacBook Pro is for pro-level performance. Among the litany of earlier controversies we mentioned in this video, another was Apple's perceived focus on thinness and lightness above all else, with many people bemoaning Apple's previous design, which was called too thin and lacked the thermal design necessary to run the latest Intel chips at higher sustained clock speeds. Well, no longer. This 16-inch is now thicker than the previous generation, and Apple has also revamped the thermals with a better fan and larger heatsink, and with bigger vents, which led to increased performance of 400 to 500 megahertz of sustained clock speed in my Cinebench R20 benchmark compared to the previous 15-inch model. Mind you, these are using the exact same CPUs as the 2019 model in my test, so these performance improvements are literally because of the new thermal design and not a new generation of CPUs. And while the CPUs for this generation did not change, the graphics certainly have, with AMD's latest 7nm 5500M graphics card, which sees a significant boost compared to the base 555X and 560X GPUs of the 2019 model. These graphics are no joke, and I was seeing more than double the performance compared to my 560X on my 15-inch, leading not only to better handling of effects in Final Cut Pro 10, but also allowing you to play a few games on your MacBook Pro. In real-world use, this combination of better thermals and an enhanced GPU made this laptop a screamer, and it handled my workflows of video, photo, and audio editing with ease. The biggest compliment I can give the 16-inch MacBook Pro was that I never felt like I was lacking any real power, and it felt about the same as my 2019 iMac, which is a big compliment. Now, don't get me wrong, these new thermals aren't going to radically make this laptop design run incredibly cool, and the fans are still going to spin up under intense load, but those instances seem to happen a lot less often than the old 15-inch design, and when it's not under heavy load, the laptop runs cool to the touch. Furthermore, Apple has also increased the battery capacity this year to 100 watt hours, which is technically the max battery capacity allowed if you want to bring this thing with you on an airplane seat. Apple promises an increase of 11 hours of wireless web compared to 10 hours of the 15-inch, and while that might be true, I use my MacBook Pro for so much more than browsing the web. And depending on how I use my MacBook Pro, I could see battery life to as low as 3 hours while editing a video in Final Cut Pro 10, to near 8 to 10 hours when using it for typing up a document, browsing the web, or watching online video. So your battery life is definitely going to vary depending on what sort of applications you're using and how you use your laptop. However, I still think there's room for improvement here. Now, yes, this is the max battery capacity that Apple can currently ship under regulations, but how they can improve this is by making the processors more efficient. And the way that I see that happening is by Apple leaving the old x86 architecture and moving on to their own custom ARM processors, which are rumored to be happening as soon as 2020. But again, these battery life improvements are definitely better than the previous version, and I'm glad that Apple is putting in the biggest battery they possibly can. Now, it's not all perfect though. These performance and battery life improvements come at a cost. With the 16-inch MacBook Pro being slightly thicker and taking up a bigger footprint than the previous 15-inch, and also weighing 0.3 pounds heavier than the old 15-inch model, which makes it a less portable option than the 15-inch. Granted, that is a minor inconvenience, and I'm sure most users will gladly trade that decreased portability for better thermals and better battery life. And this has been my conclusion as well, because overall, I have really enjoyed using the 16-inch MacBook Pro. The better thermal design, graphics, improved speakers, microphone, battery life, slightly larger display, and at the same cost as the previous 15-inch model with increased base storage capacities make this MacBook Pro a winner. And a no-brainer upgrade for 2015 MacBook Pro stalwarts. If you have a newer 2018 or 2019 model of the 15-inch MacBook Pro, I think that you can skip this generation and maybe wait for further improvements, especially considering that another 16-inch MacBook Pro with 10th generation Intel CPUs are likely going to launch in less than a year. Alright everyone, hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, make sure you leave me a like, and if you want to see more from my channel, make sure you're subscribed. Also, be sure to let me know what you think of the 16-inch MacBook Pro in the comments below. Overall, I have been very happy with this laptop, so I definitely want to hear everyone's take on it. Also, be sure to check out our sponsor for this video, Dashlane. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.